Yes, sir.
Just so Ms. Roach doesn't leave, if it's appropriate, I think maybe she can answer that question after.
Bill Ertel, Williams, Oregon. I'd like to talk a little bit about Measure 91. Is that the right measure?
For what, Bill?
Medical or recreational marijuana. I had the opportunity Saturday night to attend a 3-hour meeting in Williams on this very subject, and it was led by a very well qualified attorney who specializes in medical marijuana issues. Two interesting things I just wanted to share. One, he's very pro the marijuana industry, but he was very emphatic that you still cannot drive impaired under the influence of marijuana, whether it's medical or recreational. And I noticed one of the speakers today was inferring that we'll have less criminal cases with Measure 91, and that doesn't seem to be the case. The other interesting thing that was discussed was that Measure 91 is primarily driven by the interest of corporations that will be warehouse growers. And the new term I learned is outside growers, which primarily in Williams would be medical marijuana. So it seems the balance is so tipped that the growers in Williams, is going to form their own organization. I think it's called Sunshine something, so that they can actually employ a lobbyist to go to Salem to protect their interests. So it's not Measure 91 all what it might seem, and it may impact the small family farmer who is now called an outside grower. So just some information. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. They are campaigning, and the ballots have already been out. You are not to allow people to campaign. Thank you.
I think it would be good to take note as well that Measure 91 has nothing to do with medical marijuana. It's the legalization of marijuana. Yes or no? I would feel much more comfortable if people have a question for you to hunt you down, kind of thing at your office or whatever, not to have a rebuttal. If they're going to get back at the rebuttals back and forth.
I would appreciate an opportunity for clarification if she chooses. She hasn't spoken yet on her 3 minutes as a public citizen. She could have the opportunity to speak.
I'm taking advantage of my 3 minutes.
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify one thing.
If you're a citizen.
At Connie Roach, 930 Southwest Farmers Drive. The intergovernmental agreement, I think there's some misunderstanding about that. We are not going to be running out to businesses, looking in the doors. We're sending letters to people, and it's Lane County is the one that can do the staffing for that. We don't have the staffing to do that. But it basically is going to be letters going out to businesses that we've identified as not having filed a return, and telling them the rules, the law that says that they are supposed to file a return. And that's the emphasis of it, is trying to get people to understand what their responsibilities are as a business owner. I do not anticipate that most of our businesses are going to end up with property tax, because most of them are small mom and pop businesses that fall under the threshold. So to me, it is a matter of education and compliance. And the other thing is, if I could look at that property tax bill, I think I can tell you the animal control is listed here in, let's see if I can, the Josephine County local, which in this case is $11.95. That is the portion that is the animal control. It is listed as a separate item on the bill. There are statutes as to how those things have to show up on the tax bill, but that is what that is.
Okay, so
Okay? So it is separate.
Thank you.
So it would seem to me that all local levies, as it's not its own district, would be incorporated into that cumulatively, so it's not going to be broken out. That's unfortunate because I think people anticipated to have a line item on their tax bill, but you go to other counties where there are multiple different levies associated with funding things in government, and that's the way they're pooled together. If it were its own district, like the 4-H, it would have its specific line item. That's unfortunate.
Yes.
Rycke Brown, 1415 Southwest 3rd Street, Grants Pass. Honorable public servant. As I told you last week, I resumed smoking marijuana in the evenings after work. I found that after 2 weeks without it, I was progressively more depressed, to the point where good things that happened to me could not lift my mood. It is my antidepressant. That's why it became my drug of choice and caused me to lose my taste for alcohol when I smoked it in college. I have written at Measure 91 in the voters' pamphlet. It seems to be written by the tobacco companies for their profit and for people who don't like pot but want to tax it for their benefit. Look at the endorsements in the voters' pamphlet.
You're doing it again.
People who voted formerly were stridently anti-pot.
It's electioneering.
The proposed tax.
Allow me to determine whether or not they are promoting it or speaking about it. Thank you.
The proposed tax is a black market-sized markup at $35 per ounce. Paid by
Speaking against it.
Good work.
I am speaking against it.
But it is something that is on the ballot now, and we should not be talking about it one way or the other.
Actually, can we have an opportunity to discuss that?
May I?
Stop, so just.
So historically, it has been my position that what is said from the podium is up to the citizens. I'm not going to regulate it. I wouldn't regulate that. That's not my job. We will not discuss elements of elections on this side of the dais. But I have never and will, I won't. Her first couple of sentences talked about marijuana. If she had stopped there, that's still talking to a measure that's on the ballot. I'm not going to discern when she gets past that point of electioning or advocating for something. That's her right. And an election is not going to preclude people to come and speak on any subject they choose. I would rather err on the side of letting in more statements from candidates or whatever from that side. We didn't stop Mark. I wouldn't go there. We have the discretion and we would be in violation, and you can file a complaint against us if we election from this side of the dais. But I'm not in favor of restricting what people choose to say on that side. It's not up to me. If you have a problem with it, you file an ethics complaint, state elections, whatever, against me, the chair, because we both, if we choose to agree to do that, then we're in violation. But you can't file one against the person who's coming to speak here. I would err on the side of caution to say that you can speak to whatever you want, regardless of when an election is taking place.
May I comment?
I think it's for us. We're not discussing.
If you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with it. I mean, it's just like, where do you draw the line?
Exactly.
So,
We have dealt as a board with that way for 3 years, going on 4, and it has been fine. I encourage people to limit their conversations about that, but at the same time, I wouldn't. It's not up to me. We will not do that.
if you would resume.
It will revive our in-state black market, as unlicensed growers will easily be able to beat the taxed price. Some licensed growers will also be tempted to sell part of their crop untaxed. The limit on private possession is only a half pound per household. A half pound per year is only enough for one who smokes only in the evenings. It will oppress the poor who grow by natural light and must often live several adults to a household. It It will allow sharing only 1 ounce at a time with another household, so one could not efficiently give it away to friends and relatives legally. And yet the 4 plants allowed can easily yield 2 pounds, so poor people will be busted for possessing too much while only trying to supply their own household. It seems to be written for out-of-state corporations like tobacco companies because it allows an unlimited number of licenses per person, all along the chain of production. Processing, wholesaling, and retailing, and persons includes corporations. With the high taxes and heavy reporting regulations, it will allow out-of-state corporations to take over our legal pot market. It also includes a definition of marijuana extracts that specifically excludes vegetable glycerin as a solvent, but is non-exclusive regarding other named and unnamed solvents, extracts of which are forbidden. Glycerin is used in nicotine vaporizing mixtures and can be used for vaping extracted cannabis resins as well. We who like our weed and or hate the black market should wait for a better offer. We are allowed to make up to 200 gallons of alcohol per year without a license. May I read the last sentence?
Next sentence.
Marijuana should not be more tightly regulated and taxed than alcohol. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we turn to the board.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So I anticipated a little bit of some concerns with the proposed assessment element. Okay, so this is not a new concept of us trying to, in a sense, be more efficient with our assessor's office. Ms. Cassanelli is right. We have the authority to do this now in our office. What we don't have is the staff and resources. So I'm in favor of stepping back, taking another look at this, making sure that everybody's on the same page with what our expectations are, what we intend on trying to do and accomplish with this. We're really trying to enforce state laws that are already on the books. It's not to penalize people. And I think it's fairly innocuous to be sending a letter to people just in reminding them, a lot of small businesses that fall under that threshold of $14,000, $16,000, $18,000 of personal property. Man, they're so busy and distracted with other things. I'm sure that this is an element that they're not really covering or following as closely as they need to. But I do want to make sure that we're doing the right thing and we're not penalizing. This is not supposed to be an element to punish business. And if we need another week to further clarify so that we have an understanding on this, I'm fine with that. I don't think the implementation is going to be tomorrow anyway. This is something, there's a lot of other counties that have real shortcomings in their staff. Where we have those, we're trying to keep above water. Mine is a fairness element, and that's what it comes down to. People who have done improvements on their homes or other things, that's outside of what the scope is trying to accomplish with this, but it's the same principle, and some people might see that in a different way. I think that we need to provide clarity. There's a reason why Texas is doing so well. Oregon is a state. Josephine County can do everything it can, but we're operating with 90% of the state laws being effective in Josephine County. I mean, that's probably the biggest impediment, I think, to businesses in Josephine County are state laws, not local ordinances that are going to be regulated. So people who are looking to relocate a business, oftentimes they're not looking at Oregon as a business-friendly area. They're looking at it for other reasons. It's an incredible climate. It's a great location between 2 metropolitan centers, which is Seattle, Portland, and San Diego, LA. Those are things that Texas doesn't have a proximity to, that we have a business advantage of operating with. We enter into intergovernmental agreements fairly regularly. This one is at the spearhead of Seligman out of Lane County. The bigger issues that the tax and assessment needs to try to capture the fact that these districts that are operating within Josephine County, they're not paying for this service of assessment and taxation. It costs us well over $1 million to facilitate this program. Most of that is general fund dollars. Some of it comes through tax redistribution from the state level. And so we do use state funds to implement these programs on behalf of the 12 other districts that operate in Josephine County to collect the $73 million of property taxes that we send out. Statutorily, we can't keep it very long, and we retain $3.6 million. So we get paid very little to do this processing. We're not looking at trying to capture Scotch tape and paper clips. That's not the goal, and I think it's disingenuous when people come up here who are opposed to such an idea and misconstrue it, further clouding the issue with the public. If you're opposed to it, that's great. And you should be educated enough to articulate your argument without having to make up stuff to get your point across. I think that's wrong. That's false. Mr. Seligman talking about how we didn't have input into a citizen initiative. I find that really ironic. Nobody came to me and ever asked for my input. I don't know who the people are who are proposing this citizen initiative. I doubt that very many commissioners across the state actually reached out. That's a legislative issue at the state level, and if those petitioners reached out to state legislators, that's the appropriate avenue. That maybe we didn't have representation that engaged with those people. I don't know. There's a lot of citizen initiatives that never even make it to the ballot, and if we chased every single one of those, Mr. Seligman, I'm not sure that would be an effective use of our time. I understand that this is a passionate issue for you. I don't know what your involvement is other than looking out for the best welfare of Josephine County, but at the same time, if you're reflecting as a representative, which you choose, you're trying to attain that job, you might be educated enough to know that in the past 2 initiatives that have come before voters of the state, they didn't pass in Josephine County. Now, maybe you'd attribute that to lack of information or education about the subject or what have you. But at the same time, you're pushing water uphill for Josephine County because they're not interested in that. Us going out to Josephine County citizens on a non-binding resolution in this November to ask them about further clarity on Measure 91, should it pass or not pass by Josephine County's or state standards, that's proactive engagement. I can't go around and talk to everybody in Josephine County, but what I can do is put something on the ballot in November to find out what the opinion is of people here in Josephine County. Just talking to your social circle of people who are in favor of this is not an accurate reflection of what the greater Josephine County citizens feel about an issue, and that's expressed by the last 2 initiatives that have come before voters of the state of Josephine County and have not passed here. So I think that's important to reflect.
Excuse me, may I have 15 seconds
No.
to respond to you?
No.
Your inaccurate statement?
No, Mark. If I'm understanding you correctly, as the chair, you would not have any problem with me tabling agenda item 1D.
Yeah, I think we need to maybe put together like a white paper that really defines for everybody to understand what it is we're trying to accomplish and have it really, if there is a punitive outlet, if there is an element, I think it was referenced, if the board, Ms. Kirkpatrick-Pilger, referenced the idea that if we have the right to waive the 5-year look back on back taxes, that needs to be explained to the board, that we do or do not, that it's explained to everybody that we do or do not, and that should be publicly refined. And I think that's appropriate. So
We'll consider
the last thing that I'll say is in reference to this political campaign thing that happens every election cycle. It's been my position, I can't say the position of the board because I've served with 6 different commissioners. I will never be in favor of restricting what people choose to say from the dais as long as it's conforming with, not these rules up there. They don't reference elections. If you want to say something in pro or con about an election, a candidate, I don't know that you're going to say that until you're going to say it. Besides what people may think about me anticipating what people are going to say. Sometimes I don't know, most of the time. And it just seems easier not to enforce that. We would be in violation of a state elections law if we did electioneering from this side in the proximity to a voting booth. But if people want to stand outside and hold up signs or what have you, that's up to the clerk to enforce, not me and not here, in my opinion. People can talk about all they want. Bringing a sign in, that's a violation. So.
And back to the administrative, we have, item 1D is tabled for further discussion.
I can make a motion to do so it's codified in the minutes if you want me to.
Well, either if it's needed, if I don't have a problem with it because I've got, as I mentioned on Thursday, I've got
some concerns. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I make a motion to approve 1A of the administrative calendar if you're so inclined, which is approval of 2014 Victims of Crime Act competitive grant award.
And I'll second that.
I'd just like to thank the staff. I think Mr. Campbell led this effort, but at the same time, it's the kind of staff that does the work, and they should be commended. That's the word.
And again, it's one of these things where this does not make the headlines of activities of a manager of the department or the office, but it is absolutely essential to the continuing smooth operation or the operation of the best of the abilities that these things are found, and they've done a great job.
I think it's a good opportunity to reference one of the speakers and how we don't control what goes on the front page, because if we did, it would be stuff like this. So.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve item 1D, which is approval of request for job description and addition, in the district attorney's office.
And I'll second that. Yeah.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, item 1C, approval of request for job addition for public health. I move for approval.
And I'll second that.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes. And then item 1D has been tabled.
I would so move to table item 1D, just for keeping consistent.
And we will second that. So, for the sake of that.
Yes.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes. Okay, approval of the consent agenda is mercifully not too terribly long. It's simple, the minutes. For anybody who wants to see the minutes of previous meetings, the minutes are in the commissioner's office. They're also available online. So if you don't have a computer, you can come into the office and they can upload that for you. And they are a fairly detailed covering of what has taken place. And if you have any other questions on those things, those are get in touch with either myself or any of the other two commissioners. We'd be happy to chase it down for you. Also, the county workshop, administration workshop meeting we had on the 25th, the general discussion on the 30th, and the executive session, which was on October 1st, and that is the consent agenda. The resolution we have, one of the things that does not gain a lot of notoriety, but it really should in the sense there are a tremendous amount of folks at Josephine County who do a lot of work behind the scenes, supportive work, whether it's a different committees or whatever it is. And we have several different committees in the county, and one of them is the Bikeways and Pathways Committee. It's a joint committee with the city and county representative, and we just have two appointments for that committee that stepped up and wanted to serve. And one of them is Leslie Orr. She has been sitting on the committee for a while. She is now had been a city. She's now a county representative, and also Larry Turpin. And both these terms are 2-year terms. Each one expires in January 2017. Larry's expires in March 28th of 2017. That's it for the.
Mr. Chair,
That's on the agenda.
of the consent agenda, items 3A and B.
And I will second that thing, thankfully.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes.
Commissioner Hare?
Yes. Any other business, Mr. Hare? Any other comments and matters from the commissioners?
Yes. I'd like to say that on Friday I attended an ONC board meeting in Eugene. It was north. And kind of traveling a little bit. it seems like, probably from the public standpoint, that there's not a lot going on with this issue. And maybe sometimes it gets lost on why it's important. Statutorily, 18 ONC counties on the west side of Oregon have the designation of ONC lands. No other state in the nation has these. No other counties in the state other than those 18 ONC counties have those. They historically shared receipts on all of the timber harvests on those 18 ONC acres, 18 ONC counties. It makes up about 2.2 million acres. The revenue stream, when you talk about what we used to garner, was well over $110, $120 million a year to 18 ONC counties. And you don't just replace that overnight through tourism or agriculture or any other subject out there. This is statutorily provided for in the 18 ONC in the 1937 ONC Act. I'm pretty passionate about this issue. And I attended last night the Douglas Timber Operators Dinner, where we celebrated the career of Doug Robertson, who served for 33 years, longest serving commissioner, I believe, in the history of the state of Oregon, certainly in Douglas County's tenure. The man has been an incredible champion of this issue. There is no substitute for this other than property taxes, which greater puts the burden on the citizens of Josephine County. Without an economy, you don't make money off of additional property taxes, which I think people need to understand. There is a serious economy associated with the timber industry on a sustained yield basis. And it was referenced very generously last night by Commissioner Doug Robertson that frankly there's a new generation of leadership that's going to carry this baton, and we're actually well positioned to have something happen. And let me explain that there's a couple of different avenues. Judge Leon ruled last year that the annual sustained quota, the ASQ, that was established in the Natural Resource Plan developed by the BLM in 2005, is statutorily what the BLM needs to put up for timber sales. In Medford, that's 57 million board feet. That's the bare minimum. His ruling required 80% of that, which is 46.5 million board feet, which the BLM achieved last year. Those are no small measures. The same judge, who's a D.C. District Court judge, will hear what is called the big enchilada. It's the whole ONC element. The idea that the ONC Act, a very specific act, trumps general acts, the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act. And that is a big deal. Swanson versus Salazar is what will be heard by Judge Leon this year. I believe at the end of this year. You never know about litigation cycles and when judges are going to hear them. But I'm feeling pretty good about the fact that that judge understands the ONC issue, is going to uphold that. And so pieces of legislation, what we've never had before in the House, which is 1526, which is the Doc Hastings bill. In fact, Title III outlines the ONC Act as having minimum harvest levels and the ability to cut trees again in the form of a trust. You don't think a trust is going to work? Talk to the tribes. The tribes are operating under a trust, and they operate pretty good as far as cutting timber. I talked to Tim, who's the Cow Creek. They oversee about 6,000 or 7,000 acres, and they don't have the kinds of litigation and stuff. At the same time, I'm keenly aware that if you put things in a different basket, the focus is on a different basket. So right now, we're seeing at the state level intense pressure on the Oregon State Forest Practices Act, which is what the state operates under, which is forcing them to sell the Elliott Forest. So the battle never ends. It just sometimes gets shifted. We make a little progress. We take 3 steps forward. We take 2 steps back. This issue will never go away. It's just where we're going to fight it. And frankly, I believe it's a lot easier to convince a state legislator from the east side or in Multnomah County to understand the effects of legislation of the Oregon State Forest Practices Act as opposed to sometimes even our legislators who reside in New York City, or somebody in the southwest part of the country or the upper east side. They don't care about 18 ONC counties on the west side of the country in Oregon. But I think we can convince state legislators if we can get the authority to reside at the state level. It's another issue that we're talking about. I serve on the Energy, Environment, and Land Use Committee. I show up to the Public Lands Committee, although I'm not technically on it. they're looking at passing a resolution which would request the state legislators to advocate for somewhat of a Utah-based federal land transition to state ownership. We're working out the specifics. It's really important that we have that dialed in, that we understand the liabilities associated with acquiring all of these federal lands, but also come with the fact that we need to do fire suppression, which in this last year costs about $120 million. So you sign up with something, you better be prepared to handle the liability associated with it as well, maintaining all of those roads. I think that it pencils out to have the cost-benefit analysis of managing those lands. You pay for it really quickly if you're managing them properly. You'll be able to pay for the roads. Historically, it worked. It can work again. But what it does is it improves the economy. Yeah, there's a other thing to where we get tax revenues off of that. We share 25% on Forest Service. It's 50% on O&C land. That's real money to Josephine County, not just in an economy, but it pays for these services in a non-property tax-based way. And so those are the things that really take up a lot of my time. If I'm burning up I-5 to go up to Salem, Eugene, Roseburg, those are the issues that made me get on I-5. I don't get on there for anything else other than something that's going to, I think, intensely benefit. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and that's one of the reasons I think that these issues are so important for Josephine County and our future. It's what we do. We cut trees in Josephine County. If you don't believe it, you need to go to the House floor in Salem, and that's what's on the floor. It's pictures of trees. It's depicted everywhere. And when we aren't doing those base elements of our economy well, everything else is going to suffer, including tourism. The amount of smoke that we've had in the last 2 summers has dramatically impacted our ability to garner tourists. You come once here and you experience that choking amount of smoke at Indian Mary Park, and don't you know they're going to probably figure out someplace else to go next year. They're not going to vacation here, and that's not appropriate. We've got to figure out a way that we can manage our forests so they don't just burn up every year. We don't harvest them the way we should after a catastrophic wildfire. We're putting intense pressure through our congressional delegation to make sure that there's a plan on the shelf. Fires happen in Josephine County and Southern Oregon. You don't need to do it in EIS every single time that this happens. Go to the shelf, pull the book off of it, the prescription for what we're going to do, and get it done in a timely fashion where there's a fiscal impact to the resource that we could harvest it. Josephine County did it. We had 2,600 acres that burned. We harvested 1,300. Before they had their first timber sales on BLM, most of ours was already harvested. That's the way it should be done. That's the way the citizens of Josephine County expect it to be done. With the last initiative that we put on the ballot, it said 89% of the people of Josephine County endorsed that kind of forest management practice after a catastrophic wildfire and reforestation within 3 years. That's what we need to be doing. So anyway, those are the things that are kind of on my mind, and so I'll be working on this. Don't get me fired up.
Amen.
Don't get me fired up. That's
How you feel about it?
I feel really good. Last night's event was it was really encouraging. There were 200 people there. That was timber operators dinner. Everything from the Cow Creek tribe represented, Roseburg Forest Products with Alan Ford, served on the governor's task force with me to talk about the O&C land. And he said, we didn't get anything out of that. And I said, I worked on a farm bill that took 8 years. I worked on an energy bill back in D.C. that took 5. This stuff, because we're just people, or whatever the process, usually takes a long time, but it will change. I guarantee it. It will not stay the same forever. That's history tells us that. It's that we're poised and ready with good legislation, great ideas that have been vetted. Because if you don't have something, somebody else has got ideas, and they'll get the opportunity to get them through if we are not there, poised and ready.
Good. Just a couple of things. One, United Community Action Network, which has offices both here in Josephine County and also in Douglas County. But they have a home tenant-based rental assistance program and TVA. And they are only taking 50 households. I don't know whether they've already been filled or not, but you will never know. If you have an interest in that or a need for that, you can call the UCAN office here, 956-4073, and or come by the UCAN office on Northeast 8th Street, just off of E and 8th, and fill out the forms. And income for one person cannot exceed $17,700 annually, and income for 8 persons cannot exceed $33,350. But if that's a possible interest to you, that's time to take advantage of it. We had on Monday night, the open bowls, or the empty bowls project, had over at the Parkwood Christian Center hosted that and made it available to options and the consortium of different groups put on this options, Josephine County Food Bank and also the Gospel Forest Commission. And they had a really a good turnout and just awareness of how to meet the needs and the needs that are there in the county. On October 30th, is something to mark the calendars about. October 30th, there is going to be 2 presentations on the Welcome to America's Worst Drug Epidemic. Is the title, and this Robert Stutman is the presenter, and there's going to be, both will be held here at the Ambassador on October 30th, 10 to noon, and also 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And if you want any information in addition to that, Sean Martinez over at the Community Corrections Building where her office is, that you can call on that, or just go online and you can find out more details on that. Also, you might want to mention this because you have a personal knowledge of Jerry. There's going to be a shindig down there.
Yeah, I attended Jerry Summers' memorial service on Saturday. So this is a gentleman that I've known my entire life. He was actually on the property next to my parents' ranch. They're having a Jerry Summers Memorial Top Truck Race this Saturday, November 1st at Josephine County Fairgrounds. Admission prices are $6 for adults, ages 12 through 17 are free, ages under 11 are free. It's going to take place at 1 o'clock, 1 to 3, and that's what time you enter your...
Yeah, you have your truck in. Race begins at 4.
Race begins at 4. So a lot of information on this flyer. If you're interested, you can go to the Fairgrounds website, I'm sure, but just a commemorative event for Mr. Jerry Summers, who's been instrumental in getting, he was a wrestling coach out in the Illinois Valley, and always had a good time setting up tough truck types of things. Overall, good guy.
Top item of must-have, roll bars must be secured.
I think that's probably the key.
And the last one is just received an email from Jessica Schwartz, their emergency management leader for Josephine County. And she says the fire season ends today. The Oregon Department of Forestry protected lands in Southwest Oregon. Rainfall of at least 1/2 inch was recorded in many parts of the district, which includes state, private, county, city, and Bureau of Land Management, forest lands in Jackson and Josephine County. Fire season started June 2nd and lasted 136 days. It's a long period of time. So the termination of the fire season removes the prevention regulations on equipment use and the use of fire for debris burning, though you need to check still with the county officials and somebody call the emergency management or any of the fire departments, and they can tell you yes or no. But the good news is, the big picture is that the fire season has now ended, effective as of today. So that is good news. Anything else that you might answer? Hearing none, we adjourn this meeting at 10:13.